Nick Reiner says that Billy Crystal knew about his dad's fear and was part of it in some way. The close friends of the famous movie maker Rob Reiner are still in total shock. Just 2 days after Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, were found badly hurt and killed in their home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, some of their best friends got together to share a sad group message about them. One of them was Billy Crystal, Rob's friend for life. But what Billy said next shocked everybody. He didn't listen to my warning. That short but powerful sentence was the first time Billy Crystal talked openly about the deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife. What was supposed to be just sharing sadness quickly turned into something much more upsetting. Billy was clearly hurting as he talked, and he started to talk about old problems that hadn't been fixed, weird signs of trouble, and talks that no one had shared with the world before. As Billy talked, it started to seem like the sad event might not have been a total surprise. In this video, we go back over the things Billy Crystal later told a small group of trusted reporters from the Los Angeles Times and Variety. From what they said, it all goes back to a quiet Sunday afternoon on November 30th, 2025, just 14 days before the killings. That day, Billy got a surprise phone call from Rob Reiner. "Come over," Rob supposedly said. "I need to talk to you. This isn't about a movie." Billy got to Rob's house on South Chadbourn Avenue a little after 4:00 p.m. What he saw right away made him worried. Rob didn't look like his normal self. His clothes were messy, his hair wasn't combed, and his usual strong handshake felt weak. Inside the house, everything felt tense. No TV on, no music playing. A glass of water was poured, but not drunk. Rob's eyes kept looking toward the hallway, like he was scared someone was listening. Billy later said that was when he first felt like something was really wrong. What Billy didn't say out loud at first, but what later caused a big fight, was that Nick Reiner, Rob's son, would come out with a surprising claim. According to Nick, Billy Crystal wasn't just someone who saw his dad's fear. He might have been much more involved than people thought. Nick says Billy knew more than he ever told, that warnings were given, talks happened, and choices were made in private. And when it was all done, Billy Crystal wasn't just sad. He was holding what Nick now calls the biggest secret ever. After a few long, quiet moments, Rob finally started talking. Billy would later say he never forgot those first words, mostly because Rob's voice sounded unusually low and rough, like he had been holding them in for way too long. "Things at home aren't good right now," Rob said. "I haven't told anyone this, but I'm totally worn out." When Billy softly asked what was going on, Rob didn't wait. He went right to the topic he had been worrying about the most, his son Nick Reiner. Rob said that in early November, Nick had a bad relapse, and then his behavior changed in scary ways. He got angry fast, even over small things that weren't a big deal. On some nights, Nick came home acting unsteady, so much that Michelle thought it was safer to sleep somewhere else to avoid a fight. One time especially stuck with Rob. It happened about a week before Thanksgiving. Rob said he and Nick had a big argument in the kitchen, started by old fights about money and getting help. Rob didn't want to say the exact words they used, but he said that moment scared him. For the first time, he didn't know how his own son would act. As Rob remembered that, he got quiet. He rubbed his forehead and looked at the floor for a few seconds. Billy later said that look wasn't mad, but like deep, long tiredness, the face of someone who had lost their sureness over time. Rob told Billy that even with all that, he was trying to keep Nick nearby. He thought keeping the family together might help his son get better. Then Rob said, something Billy would always remember. "I'm only afraid," Rob said slowly, almost to himself, "that if I push him away, I'll be the one who finally breaks him." As he said it, Billy saw Rob squeezing his fingers tight together, like he was trying hard to hold in feelings he couldn't control anymore. That was when Billy Crystal spoke up strongly. He sat straight, looked right at Rob, and said, "I get what kind of dad you are, but I think you're putting your own safety and Michelle's at risk too." Billy stressed that the kind of unpredictable actions Rob talked about couldn't be ignored, especially in the family home. "It's normal to trust family," Billy said, "but this needs limits, not just keeping quiet and putting up with it." Rob listened without saying anything. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. His voice got quieter as he said softly, "I hear you. I really do. But I can't think of my own son as dangerous." Rob said Nick had gotten through many bad times before, and he was scared that one bad choice now could ruin everything forever. As he said that, he leaned back in his chair and let out a long, tired breath, showing even he wasn't sure he was doing the right thing. The talk ended in an uncomfortable way. Rob stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the backyard garden, a spot that used to have happy family times. Turning back, he softly patted Billy on the shoulder and said he would think about it all after Thanksgiving. Billy left the Brentwood house as it got dark, feeling really uneasy, a feeling that stayed with him for days. Billy said this was one of the few times he left Rob's house thinking over and over that something was really wrong. And it was only after the sad event when Billy shared this private talk that people started seeing the Brentwood case differently, bringing up questions that got harder to ignore. When I first heard about what happened in that house, I thought right away that this didn't sound like the Rob I knew at all. Billy Crystal said what worried him from the start wasn't just how bad the event was, but how things seemed to happen. He said the Brentwood home was never super quiet for long. Rob and Michelle had a regular schedule. People came and went often, plans were kept, and the house was hardly empty. But the problem was only found when someone came as planned, knocked a lot, and got no answer. To Billy, that one fact made him wonder right away. Why did so much time go by without anyone inside answering? And why didn't anything seem wrong earlier? Billy then looked closely at how family found the scene. When Romy went into the house, she said she saw her dad first, and in panic ran back out. Michelle was found in another part of the home and noticed later. Billy said that fact scared him because it meant Rob and Michelle weren't together when it all happened. That fact fits something Rob had told him once. Billy said Rob had said that tension at home didn't usually blow up in one spot or moment. It would move around the house, getting worse little by little. As Billy thought about the scene, it seemed to match that pattern exactly. Another thing Billy couldn't forget was how much time passed before anyone found out. He knew there was a big gap between when it probably happened and when police were called. To Billy, that wait didn't seem like Rob Reiner at all, who was always quick to act, especially about family. The long quiet in the house made Billy think back to his private talk with Rob. Times when Rob said the house could get so quiet, it felt creepy. Billy also talked about how both people were, not like a doctor would, but from hearing Rob talk about family emotional outbursts. In Billy's opinion, the kind of hurt suggested a situation full of built-up stress, where the old feelings that were held in finally broke out. He said it was a lot like what Rob had described about times when Nick lost control, when things happened too fast and too strong for anyone to stop. What made Billy feel even more that something was off was how the house looked after. From what he heard later from people close to the family, the furniture and things around didn't show big mess. To Billy, that didn't fit with someone breaking in from outside. He had been to the house many times and knew every room, every habit, every little thing Rob and Michelle did. The fact that the home still looked normal made him think it happened in a close, everyday way, not from a quick attack from a stranger. And that, Billy said, was what made the whole thing so upsetting. Billy said there was one picture he couldn't get out of his head: Romy's face when she came back out of the house. He said her panic was instant and huge. She couldn't stay inside more than a few seconds. To Billy, that reaction by itself showed that what she saw was way more than any family member could be ready for. He said her response was a lot like his own when he first heard the early reports of the scene. The same shock of facing something very personal and too hard to handle. But the fact that worried Billy the most came later: Nick not being there when the bodies were found. Billy was careful not to jump to ideas. Still, he said that when he heard Nick wasn't in the house, his mind went right back to that quiet afternoon in Brentwood weeks before. When Rob had said he couldn't guess how his son would act in tense moments to Billy, Nick not being there felt like a key part missing, one that made the warning he gave Rob hurt even more now. When all the facts were put together, Billy said the scene didn't seem like a random sad event, but like the end of a long line of warning signs that had been there for a while. From then on, the story changed. Nick Reiner's name wasn't just in Rob's private talks anymore. While people were still trying to put together bits of info about the Brentwood case, Billy was thinking differently. He didn't start by asking what happened. He started by asking who left the house before it was all found. Billy said the moment he heard Nick Reiner wasn't there, a heavy feeling came over him, the same one from weeks before when he left Rob's house after their talk. Billy said Nick was never unknown to him. Nicholas Reiner, born in 1993, was the kid Rob worried about most. Over years, Rob had told Billy openly about Nick's fights with addiction, the many tries at help, the relapses, and how tired it made the whole family. Billy remembered Rob saying there were times when Nick almost vanished from family life, living here and there, not talking for long times. Because of that past, when Billy heard Nick wasn't in the house when the bodies were found, his thoughts went back to Rob's words about not being able to guess his son's actions when things got stressful. Another fact soon got to Billy, one he couldn't ignore. From quiet talks in the movie world, Nick and Rob had a pretty big fight just hours before the event. The argument happened the night before at a Christmas party at Conan O'Brien's house. A few people there later said Nick seemed mentally off, acting strange in ways that stood out more than normal. Billy said hearing that scared him because it matched exactly what Rob had told him about times when Nick was hard to handle. When the sad event happened on December 14, 2025, Billy noticed one thing most of all. Nick Reiner wasn't at the Brentwood house. From what Billy heard later, Nick had left the area before the bodies were found and was stopped later that night near the University of Southern California, more than 20 kilometers from the family home in Brentwood. To Billy, that distance from Brentwood to where Nick was stopped was important. In his mind, it was plenty of time for Nick to leave the house upset or mixed up. Exactly the kind of thing Rob had described after his son's bad episodes. As the court stuff got clearer, the charges came. Nick now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, plus a special part about multiple victims and other serious claims. Billy watched the news about Nick's arrest closely. When pictures came out of Nick in court wearing jail clothes, hands tied, Billy said he was really upset. Seeing that made every warning he gave Rob feel real and painful. Nick is now charged with 2 serious murder counts about the deaths, with extra factors for hurting more than one person in one event. From info Billy got later, Nick is held without bail and waiting for his next court date in early 2026. Billy remembered comments from a police person he heard about from friends in Los Angeles law groups. The person supposedly said the case had lots of unsolved family issues, especially about what happened in the 24 hours before the deaths were found. Even though Billy wasn't part of the case, those words made him believe more that this sad event wasn't from outside, but from stress building in the Reiner family for a long time. What hurt Billy the most, he said himself, was that Nick was the one Rob tried hardest to help. The movie Being Charlie wasn't just another job for Rob. To Billy, it was Rob's last very personal try to help his son get steady. Rob hoped the movie would change Nick's life. Instead, Billy said, the big problem stayed, getting worse quietly over time. Seeing Nick taken away, Billy felt like he was watching the end of the hope Rob had held for years. In private talks with good friends, Billy Crystal said he had worries from almost the start. Not because he wanted the worst, but because too many warning signs came too soon. Rob's talks, the fight at the Christmas party, Nick not at the house, and him being stopped far from Brentwood. Together, they made a line of events Billy couldn't ignore anymore. As the story went from private, worry to real court stuff, Billy knew the sad event had a new stage, where sadness and friendship couldn't hide the truths coming out. A longtime friend in Beverly Hills said Billy slowly pulled away from public stuff. He stopped going to restaurants he liked and missed end-of-year events already planned. For days at a time, he stayed home. One time, he quietly went to Brentwood and came back without talking to anyone. People close said Billy was going through a very personal kind of sadness. For Billy, losing Rob Reiner wasn't like losing a regular friend. It felt like losing part of himself, someone he depended on for years. Rob was the first person Billy called when things went well, and the one he went to when he felt stuck. And what hurt him most wasn't just Rob's death, but that it happened when Billy wasn't there. People close said Billy kept thinking over their last talk in Brentwood, remembering every bit from the tired look in Rob's eyes to how he talked about his son with fear, hope, and no power mixed. Billy said even though he felt something was badly wrong, he still left that day, believing Rob would handle it. Looking back, that choice became his biggest hurt. He blamed himself for not staying more, for not pushing for another talk, for not saying stronger words to make Rob face the danger directly. People close thought Billy started looking at old phone records and messages with Rob. Short texts and fun jokes, once okay, became hard to see. One friend remembered Billy saying quietly, "I thought I had plenty of time. I didn't." He said that a lot, not like complaining, but like admitting something. Sadness soon turned to blaming himself. Billy never blamed Rob or pointed at anyone else. Instead, he was mad at himself for listening kindly instead of speaking firmly. Mad that he trusted Rob's love for his son to keep things okay. That anger didn't come out loud. It stayed quiet, taking his sleep. Some saw he started waking early, walking slow in the house, then sitting in the dark for hours, looking out the window without lights. The pain got heavier as he saw that what he worried about happened in the worst way. Billy later said the whole thing made him feel like both someone who saw it coming and someone left out. In rare talks, he said that feeling of not being able to help hurt more than the loss. He had seen the signs. He had given warnings, and it still wasn't enough. In the movie world, people quietly heard that Billy turned down TV spots longer than usual, even when big shows wanted him. Someone close said it was easy to see why. Billy wasn't ready to talk about Rob without getting too upset. Every time it came up, memories came back with the guilt of not being there when things fell apart. It was from this sad and blaming place that Billy Crystal started thinking back on his almost 50-year friendship with Rob Reiner. Not to find reasons, but to hold on to the best memories before the sad event covered them. From there, the story softly moved to what Billy loved most, a special, lasting friendship between two people who stayed close for almost a whole lifetime. Billy finally spoke through a group message signed with his wife, Janice Crystal, and Rob Reiner's best friends and longtime work partners, like Albert Brooks, Martin Short, Larry David, Mark Shaman, Barry Levinson, and others big in Hollywood. The message sent through the Associated Press was a nice but very emotional goodbye to Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner. For Billy, joining it wasn't just a public note. It was speaking for a friendship that lasted almost 5 decades. In the message, Billy and Rob's friends thought about what brought them together from the start. A shared love for movies, for telling stories in dark theaters where strangers laugh, cry, and get quiet together over something important. That was the world Rob lived in completely, and one Billy had seen from the early days. Their friendship started in the mid-1970s on the set of All in the Family. Rob was already a TV star while Billy was still finding his way. They saw in each other a special understanding, not from being famous, but from sharing a kind of humor that had real feeling, not just surface jokes. What started as talks after filming turned into friendship, then a close bond that helped them through big parts of their jobs. When Rob started directing, the bond got stronger. Billy wasn't just an actor in Rob's movies, but someone trusted to help with lines, feelings, and stories. When Harry Met Sally was the best example of that trust, more than a big movie hit. It showed the free way Rob let Billy create, guiding without bossing. In the group message, Rob was called a master storyteller who could switch easy between funny and serious, funny attacks and real feeling. Those words were more than job praise. They came from people who knew Rob closely, who got his respect for actors, his care for writers, and his idea that movies were always teamwork, never just orders. For Billy, the hardest part of writing those words was talking about Rob like he was gone. Rob wasn't just a work friend. He was family. Billy was often in Rob and Michelle's Brentwood home. Long meals, talks about kids, about the world, about what artists should do. Knowing those same rooms later became the place of the sad event hurt Billy a lot. Hearing that Rob and Michelle were found in their bedroom on December 14th felt like something very private being broken. The message also praised Rob and Michelle as a couple, a strong team with shared beliefs. Billy had always liked Michelle's strength, her being right there with Rob, in family and good causes. Losing both made the sadness even bigger. At the end, Billy and his friends used a line from It's a Wonderful Life, a movie Rob loved a lot about how one life affects many and how not having it leaves a big empty space. Billy got that more than anyone. For him, Rob not being there wasn't just a loss for movies. It was in no-answer calls, talks never finished, and quiet instead of almost 50 years of shared life. And that's why Billy Crystal speaking up wasn't just reacting to the sad event, but the last thing a friend did to make sure Rob Reiner was remembered for who he really was. The sad event with Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer. Reiner not only upset Hollywood, but also ended sadly a friendship that lasted almost 50 years between Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal. For Billy, the loss wasn't just two people close to his life gone, but a space that couldn't be filled in daily things, calls with no answer, and talks that would never end. When Billy spoke, it wasn't just a friend sad for his best buddy, but also feeling sorry and reminding that warning signs can come early. But no one can always change what comes next. Behind the great movies and on-screen fun are lasting hurt and questions without answers, making this sad event a scary end to both a lifelong friendship and a big part in movie history.